Okay, we are streaming.
Okay.
So members, it's Nick Brain, solicitor. So we're not live into the meeting yet. Obviously the leader as chairman will take over when we are, but just to let all members know, we have now gone on to the live stream. So anything you now say will be out in the public.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Nick.
Good afternoon, Don.
Hello, Karen. So
Good afternoon.
we don't formally start till 2:30, so I should just wait until that time before I actually formally begin. I think I've just looked. The only member of the executive we're still waiting for is Bridget. I think everybody else is on except for Bridget, but I could be wrong, and I just quickly looked down the attendance list. Bridget
That's
Petty,
correct,
are you there?
Bridget.
Okay, Mike Wriggle is all working okay, technically? No answer. Nick, I've heard Nick Brain on here.
Chairman, I'm here.
Okay, and are Michelle and Sue
Yes,
both
yes,
on?
We're here, Chairman.
Lovely. Okay.
Chairman, I can confirm that the live feed is working to YouTube.
Lovely. Okay. So I think that on my watch it's 2:30. So I was going to suggest that we begin. So welcome all. This is a whole new world in which we are living, and I'm addressing this both to my colleagues on the executive, the councillors of North Somerset Council who have joined us on this broadcast, and also, very importantly, the people of North Somerset who may be following this either as a live stream or viewing the recorded session. So please bear with us. We are somewhere new. We've done some testing on this. We've actually run a formal meeting in this virtual world is a first for North Somerset. So I'd like to thank everybody for their assistance in getting us this far, not least the technical people. What I was going to do, and I don't normally like reading things out, but I'm going to read out a statement about where we are, so everybody's very, very clear as to how this is all going to work. So please forgive me for reading, but I think it's important I don't forget any particular parts. This is the first of North Somerset Council's meetings being held under the virtual meetings regulations. The meeting is being held using Microsoft Teams. Decisions made by the executive will have the same standing of validity as if they made at the standard meeting held at the town hall. We are streaming today's meeting live on the internet. A recorded version will be available to view within 48 hours on the North Somerset Council website. The members of the public may see a number of different people on screen during the course of the meeting, but only the members of the executive will take the decision on each agenda item. I would refer councillors to the meeting etiquette and guides to use in Teams emailed you to all on Monday. Please remember to use your headphones. This will improve sound quality for everyone. Members of the executive, would you please ensure that your audio is muted when you are not speaking, and when you have spoken, please remember to mute your sound again. When you wish to speak, would you please indicate by using the conversation or chat function. I'll invite each of you to speak by way of a queue system. When you speak, please introduce yourself as Councillor X. If you are leaving the meeting or return to the meeting, would you please ensure that I'm aware of this request to speak? And just to note that at this meeting, Michelle Chesterman will be administering that on my behalf to make sure I don't miss anybody. So thank you, Michelle. Non-executive members, would you please ensure that both your audio is muted and your video is turned off when you're not speaking. And when you have spoken, please remember to mute your audio and turn off your video again. As above, please use a chat function to indicate you wish to speak. And for voting, when proposing a motion, would you please indicate as above that you wish to speak and wait until I invite you to speak. Please then clearly state that what you are moving, for example, the recommendation of the report, particularly for the benefit of the public. If you are seconding a motion, please again clearly indicate that you wish to speak and wait for me to call you. Generally, voting at this meeting will be done in reverse order and en bloc. That is, first votes against the motion will be requested, then any abstentions, then all the other executive members in the meeting will be taken en bloc as voting for the motion. As chairman, if I determine there should be voting by roll call, Democratic Services and the solicitor will call out each councillor in turn by name. Please state clearly if your vote is for, against or abstain. This will ensure the vote is recorded accurately for both more controversial matters and enable the members of the public to properly observe the vote. Okay, so I think the first step is to ask all my colleagues in turn to introduce themselves both to their colleagues in the council and more importantly the members of the public. So Mike Bell.
Thank you, Don. I'm Councillor Mike Bell, Deputy Leader of the Council and Executive Member for Adult Social Care and Health.
Mark Canniford.
Afternoon, Don. Councillor Mark Canniford, Executive Member for Business Economy and a few other bits.
Okay, Ash Cartman.
Afternoon, Don. I'm Councillor Ash Cartman and I am the Executive Member for Finance and Performance.
Caritas.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Caritas Charles. I'm the Executive Member for Leisure, Culture, Tourism and Community Engagement.
Catherine.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Catherine Gibbons. I'm the Executive Member for Children's Services and Lifelong Learning.
Okay. Bridget.
Good afternoon. I'm Councillor Bridget Petty. I'm Executive Member for Climate Emergency and the Environment, and this includes waste and recycling, and I'm Green Councillor for Backwell.
Okay, and James Tonkin. James, you were there a minute ago.
Oh, there we are. Try that again. Good afternoon, Don. I'm Councillor James Tonkin, and I'm the Exec Member for Planning and Transport.
Lovely. Okay, and I'm Don Davis, the Leader of the Council. Okay, so let's go on to addresses. We're going to go on to the agenda now. So item 1 is addresses by members of the public, of which there are none. Apologies for absence. I'm assuming that we've all introduced ourselves, therefore we're all here. Declarations of disposal of pecuniary interest, are there any? The minutes of the meeting held on the 5th of February 2020, which are in the document, can we confirm these are the correct record? I need a proposer.
Propose that they are accepted, Chairman.
And I need a seconder.
Seconded, Chairman.
Okay, so are there any against? Are there any abstentions? So on that basis, I can assume we're all for them and they are passed. Thank you. There are no non-executive council addresses. Item 5 on the agenda. Item 6, matters referred to the executive and not dealt with elsewhere on the agenda. There are none. West of England's sub-region items not dealt with elsewhere on this agenda. There are again none. And we have the forward plan, which is for noting. There's no vote required on this. So are there any comments, questions? I'll ask any non-executive councillors first to send a message through to Michelle.
No, I haven't had anything. Oh, Councillor Richardson would like to speak.
Okay, Jeff Richardson.
Hi, this is a quick question for Mark Canniford. I was just wondering what the situation was on the parking review at the moment.
as you would expect, we still have officers looking through the results of the consultation, but that is probably as far as this is going in the meantime. We will have to quite clearly review our position when we get to the end of this process in terms of COVID-19. But I can assure councillors that they will be well aware when we start either discussing, considering, looking at the results of any consultations. So currently, I don't think members need to be particularly concerned about time. That those time limits and timings we had to adhere to previously are quite clearly now not relevant, and we will go over all that again as soon as council is able to start considering its position in terms of policy decisions later in the year. So I would simply say I will make sure all members are fully aware when we need to start engaging on that process again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So this is for noting. Therefore, are there any against noting? Are there any abstentions? Therefore, Michelle, I can assume you've got nothing, so therefore we can accept these and move forward. Yeah. Yes?
Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. And we now go on to item 9, challenges and choices. Councillor Tonkin, I believe you may have a revised recommendation.
Yes, I have. Thank you, Chairman. First of all, I would like to thank Lucy Shamali and the planning policy team for the huge amount of work that has gone into this process so far. Right. Given the extremely
James, it's very noisy there. We can't hear you properly. It sounds like it's a rustling of paper. It's not your tie, is it?
No, it's not my tie.
All right.
You got a problem with my tie?
That's very smart.
It's genuine issue tie, this is.
Yes.
Right. Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and stop rustling papers. Given the extremely challenging times we are living through with the current COVID-19 crisis, and following informal briefing of members and discussion with the officers, it is now proposed that the Council takes a revised approach to consulting on the challenges and choices stage of the local plan process. There is a need to create a clearer approach to consultation and engagement, given both the challenges of engaging effectively during the current lockdown period and recognising the opportunity to give more time to reflect on the broader context for the choices to be made around the future development in North Somerset. There is also a need to better understand the government's exit strategy from COVID-19 crisis and the longer-term economic impacts and implications for North Somerset. It will be essential to align the progress of the Council's emerging response to economic recovery and renewal with the progression of the local plan. It is also unclear what impacts COVID-19 crisis will have on the housing market and the implications this will have for North Somerset's housing needs. This requires further consideration and also recognition by government that the basis of current forecasts may need to change. In this context, it is now proposed to undertake a two-stage consultation process, with the first stage focusing on the challenges for North Somerset. This will seek the views of local communities, businesses, and the development industry on the issues the local plan will need to address. It will take place in the early summer and will help inform the second stage of consultation, which will focus on the choices we have around the strategic approach to development. We anticipate the second stage taking place in the early autumn. Whilst the document that is before the executive is helpful, it will not be the subject of a formal consultation in its current form. On this basis, I propose a new set of recommendations for the executive to consider as follows. That the executive, 1, notes the local plan challenges and choices document and resolves to consult in 2 stages. The first stage, to communicate the issues facing the district and seek views on them, and then, following consideration of the responses received, to consult separately on the options for potential spatial strategies for future development. 2, authorises the Director of Development and the Environment, in consultation with the Executive Member for Planning and Transport and other relevant executive members, to prepare an engagement plan for local involvement on the challenges phase of the development of the local plan, to include a simpler document that summarises key issues and invites ideas. 3, ask the Director of Development and the Environment to prepare a second choices phase of the public engagement of the local plan, following the conclusion of the first phase, to include a first phase consultation report and choices paper. 4, resolve to write to the government and local MPs to challenge the basis for forecast housing growth, particularly in the light of the COVID-19 crisis and the climate emergency, and to highlight the ongoing need for substantial investment in infrastructure and jobs to support development. Thank you, Chairman. You're muted, Don. Don, you're muted.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
I'm happy to second it, Don, and would like to speak to it, please.
Fine, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Mike Bell, seconding that. So I was going to, yes, so if you would like to second that motion and speak, please, to the motion, Mike. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. I mean, I'd like to thank officers and colleagues for taking on board the constructive suggestions that have been put forward by members across the council. We've obviously had a period of dialogue internally within the council and a very good briefing for all members earlier in this week, which again brought to bear some ideas and thoughts about the future direction that we need to take with the local plan. And I'm very pleased to support the amended recommendations that James has put forward, which absolutely take on board the thoughts and ideas that myself and colleagues have put forward. I mean, I think we all recognise that there are no easy answers in terms of developing the local plan and the process ahead. But I think it's really important that our administration and our council have some clear objectives in terms of what we're looking to do. The first is that we want to have a much more open consultation than has been achieved before, with residents, businesses and stakeholders able to contribute their ideas on meeting the challenges we face, without having preconceived notions about the locations, quantity or types of development. So I think that's really important, particularly learning the lessons from the JSP process. The second phase of engagement, which James has talked about, can obviously then look into learning some lessons from that challenges conversation, and will give people an opportunity to put forward their ideas about preferred routes to tackle the issue. But thirdly and crucially, and I'm really pleased to see this in the recommendation that James has put forward, we must confront the government about its premise of significant further house building, when that is at the same time as a lack of critical investment in infrastructure and jobs. It's really crucial that this council doesn't just roll over and do what we're told by government, but actually challenges the basis upon which plans are put forward, so that we can really demonstrate that they are things that we need for our community today and long into the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was going to suggest that we ask Michelle to give us any of the non-executive councillors who wishes to comment. But before we do that, is there any clarification comment that any of the officers would like to make in relation to the new motion and Mike Bell's seconding thereof? Okay, Michelle, do we have any non-executive members who wish to speak?
Yes, we've had a few requests from executive members and also a request from Councillor Hugh James to speak.
Okay, now I would before we start this, Michelle, I'd just like to stress to councillors we are discussing the motion that's been proposed and seconded. Please, 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 we aren't trying to write the local plan here this afternoon. So thank you for that. Who was the first wishes to speak? You say Hugh James, Michelle?
Non-executive member, Councillor Hugh James.
Hugh James. Hugh James?
I think it was Karen Havison, but I can speak now if that's...
Oh, sorry, Karen Havison.
Well, everyone's going to get a chance. You want to carry on, Hugh, as you're on screen?
Yeah. So I'd like to thank the revised recommendations in this two-stage process. I think it allows the council to show the choices and solutions it seeks are directly linked to the challenges and issues that matter to members of our public. I think that the previous recommendations and the previous thing we're about to sign off there might have been a problem in that it encourages building in urban green spaces a priority and on greenfield sites that matter a lot to our communities. I think one thing that will be really useful in the first stage of the process is to help differentiate and show how our members of the public value green areas that are around our urban areas, green areas within our urban areas, around our urban areas, and the green belt. Like concepts like the green belt are really motive ones for our residents. They hark back to the shires and about green and present lands, but the green belt we wish existed isn't the one that's on our statute book. So I think it's really useful to listen to our residents and see the green spaces that matter to them, and then act on that, as opposed to what we think that the green spaces we think our residents might care about. I didn't phrase that in the best way, but there we are.
Thank you, Hugh. Michelle, did you say Karen Havison next?
Councillor Karen Havison, yes.
Yeah, Karen.
Okay, just excuse the cat. Yeah, it seems a lot of what I wanted to raise has already been dealt with by the new approach we just saw. So I really welcome this two-stage approach in this uncertain time. It's hugely important that we take our local residents with us and that they feel involved even in the very early planning stages. The timing of this consultation comes, as we all know, where we face massive worldwide changes, which is both a problem and maybe optimistically also an opportunity. But if we learn one thing from this crisis, I hope that it is to trust overwhelming scientific consensus and take precautions such science recommends. This is true for pandemics, for climate change, but also economics. I'm also really happy that we will try and challenge the numbers that government has prescribed. But even if we don't succeed with this, we need to take into account economic forecasts. And there seems to be an absolute consensus amongst economists that the legacy of this pandemic will be a massive economic downturn, comparable or worse than in the 1920s. I know our plan is a long-term plan, but economists expect impacts lasting for a decade. So when we ask our residents to help us plan for the future developments in North Somerset, we need to bring this into the equation and to their attention. We know that the calculations of required housing numbers are based on extrapolating from previous trends into the future, and we can be almost certain that these trends will not continue. There will be less money and more uncertainty around, all impacting on the housing market. So I feel it's really important to develop a plan or plans which are as flexible as possible, which can be scaled down with the least possible waste of infrastructure, which turns out in the end not to be required. I presume there will be government stimulus schemes for the housing industry, but if people do not have the money for new homes, then they will not be bought. But of course, the need for affordable houses almost certainly will go up. So to me, this means placing homes where there is existing infrastructure as much as possible, which we can plug into. In the end, we may well end up with very similar choices to the ones which were in our officers' documents, but I'd just like to include the need for flexibility and possibly scaling down to be included in this all early challenges consultation that we plan to put out.
Thank you, Karen. Michelle, any other members like to speak?
We've got 3 executive members who'd like to speak.
Okay, but no more of our colleagues. No. Okay, thank you. So who's next?
Councillor Bridget Petty.
Bridget, thank you.
Hello. Very similarly to my colleagues who have gone before me, specifically Karen with her reference to the need to follow the scientists and the evidence in front of us regarding climate change and regarding the economists. I just too wanted to welcome the changes made to the process. I can see that it is going to be a difficult time, whatever happens, and it is uncomfortable choices that are being asked of us. But let's make sure we can do the best that we can for the residents of North Somerset. So it is difficult to deliver 20,000 homes and appropriate jobs while facing a climate emergency. But the Conservative government has set this for us, and I'm really glad that we will be challenging that, however that ends up. I'm keen to ensure that the process that we use with which to consult reaches a full breadth of people and generations across North Somerset who will be part of planning for the future to 2038. So I'm looking forward to how the officers work up details of how we engage with all generations to plan for that future, and certainly keen to learn from lessons associated with the previous process of the JSP, which wasn't always satisfactory. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Ash Cartman next.
Ash Cartman.
Thank you. I will be brief because I think some of the points I wanted to make have already been made, but I think the overarching point that comes through is to say thank you to the officers and to Councillor Tonkin for listening. One of the things we said we'd do as a new council is be more open. And I think the fact that we've made these changes at a late stage really reflecting the desire of our councillors and our communities that, one, we need to be firmer and stronger going back to the government on numbers. And two, we don't want to be laying out the options until we fully explore the issues is something that I think I want everyone to remember as we go forward, that we try and keep this process as open and transparent and as consultative as possible. So I really welcome this. Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor Mark Canniford.
Mark Canniford.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think just to reiterate, some of that's been said, but I think also it's important what Mike said regarding the government. The government are telling us that we need more houses. Therefore, the government must be fully aware we need more infrastructure. And without that infrastructure, we cannot develop those houses, and we shouldn't buckle on that because, you know, we have in the past just accepted it, and the residents of North Somerset have become more and more unhappy about the fact that they can't even access the services they need simply because the infrastructure is not being put in place. So I really am delighted to see it change in this way, and we can now talk to our residents about what they see is coming. We must be very honest with them and tell them what has to happen. We must be very honest with them, tell them what we're being asked. However, that said, we then can go through this process and then give our residents with us the choices that are in front of us. And I thank officers and Councillor Tonkin, like the others, for giving us the opportunity to do it in this way.
Okay, so thank you, colleagues. I don't know if any of the officers wish to make any comments.
Councillor Gibbons has asked to speak as well.
Okay, Catherine Gibbons.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say I also welcome these changes and echo a lot of what my colleagues have said. I hope that this will give us an opportunity to allow residents to express their desire for a different kind of planning, and I hope that we can ensure that we have enough affordable homes, genuinely affordable homes in North Somerset, and also the kind of homes that are flexible so that we're not building a very limited style of house that isn't good for all ages. One of my hobby horses, as you all know, is child-friendly planning. So I would like to see principles like that included in this eventually, and to make sure that we build for a very different world and we build for the needs of people across the generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Did any officers wish to make any comments on the paper? Thank you for the all the work that's gone into this, and also making some of these changes at a late stage. So, Michelle, has any officer indicated they wish to speak?
I've got Councillor Tonkin would like to make a final comment.
Okay. Well, yeah. So, so do you want to sum up, James?
Yeah. Thank you, Chairman. All really just to say thank you to all the members for their comments. I've taken them all on board and will add it to part of the consultation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And also thank you to everybody for part of this, because I do think that the environment which we're in is changing so much day by day, and we do need to take into account the recovery post COVID-19 pandemic crisis as well, and that's going to be part of our planning for the future, and actually giving some hope that some good can come from this dreadful event. So I'm going to move now to a vote.
Oh, Nick Brain would like to make a comment.
Oh, okay. Oh, Nick Brain.
Chairman, just before you move to the vote, just for the benefit of the public, obviously the revised recommendations will be included in the minute, and for the benefit of all councillors, especially the executive councillors, you are voting upon the amended version of the recommendation, which you were all emailed late this morning. So all of the exec members in particular, that is the recommendation you're voting on.
Okay, thank you. So it's using the same process as before. Are there any against? Are there any abstentions? I'm going to look to Michelle to see if she's picked anything up.
No, I've had
Okay,
nothing.
so therefore, by exception, everybody is for this. So thank you, James, and thank you, colleagues, for your support on this, and look forward to taking this piece of work forward and keeping members, and more importantly, members of the public informed as to where we are with this new two-phase approach. So thank you very much, everybody. We'll now move on to item number 10. Which is the Metro West Phase 1 update. And I think, again, that's Councillor James Tonkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, I would like to thank Jonathan Kirby and James Wilcox and their team for all the hard work that they put into this report. A quick summary: the Council have been supported on Metro West by professional services to enable successful submission and subsequent acceptance of the development consent order in December 2019. Professional services are 1. Network Rail, 2. Legal, 3. Land Agent, 4. Environmental Impact Assessment Services. The Council needs to re-procure these services to enable a successful outcome of the DCO planning inquiry, and also to progress the technical work to help progress the Stage 5 design of the scheme. The funds for the above professional services have been approved previously and are part of the existing budget allocations for the project. We are also seeking approval for the procurement of highways and civil engineering works, estimated at £6.97 million, to ensure that enabling works are on programme to meet the estimated 2024 project completion date. A decision on contract award for these works will be brought back to the Executive for approval. The achievement of an approved DCO and Stage 5 technical design are the two fundamental items that are required for the submission of the full business case to both the West of England Committee and the Department for Transport. The full business case is due for submission in early 2022 based upon the current programme. It is important to note that authority to proceed on the project after full business case approval is received is subject to further full council approval. All professional services contracts will be aligned with the project programme and have break clauses built in should we not achieve planning, full business case, or take the decision not to proceed. The final risks associated with this project have been consistently summarised on all decisions to date. Given the nature of these large infrastructure projects, this is under constant review along with the project's contingencies. There will no doubt be an increase in financial risk as a result of COVID-19, and officers are working closely with the West of England Combined Authority as joint promoters and are in constant dialogue with the Department of Transport and Government as a major funding partner. North Somerset Council and West of England Combined Authority are working jointly with Network Rail on the delivery options for the main works post FBC approval. This work had started before COVID-19 and is even more important now, as the options will provide a number of mitigations to the risks and issues arising out of COVID-19 around programme and cost. Whilst officers are still working through the impact of COVID-19 on the project, it is as a clearer national picture emerges, what has been consistent message from the government and economic leaders is that projects such as Metro West are a key component to the national and economic recovery of North Somerset post-COVID-19. Therefore, the Executive is asked to approve delegated authority from the Director of Development and the Environment in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democratic Services and the Director of Finance and Property to procure and award contracts for the following professional services to support the continuation of the development consent order process and pending successful outcome of the DCO through to project completion. 1. Rail engineering technical support and rail industry technical processes up to £2 million. 2. Legal aid up to £2.9 million. 3. Land agent up to £0.9 million or £900,000. Environmental impact assessment services up to £1.9 million. The above contract form part of the estimated total project costs of £116.4 million and will be funded as profiled in financial section of this report. The contracts of engagement will have break clauses at key milestones within the project should the council not be in a position to proceed as outlined in section 4. 2. Authorises the Director of the Development and Environment in consultation with the Head of Legal and Democratic Services and the Director of Finance and Property to procure highways and civil engineering works. Estimated value of £6.97 million, which forms part of the current estimated £116.4 million total project cost. A report will be brought back to the Executive for contract award following completion of the procurement process, securing of the DCO and the full business case approval. 3. Notes the work is in progress between North Somerset Council, West of England Combined Authority and Network Rail with regards to the wider procurement of the main construction works, and authority to proceed with procuring these works will be brought to full council in the summer of 2020. 4. Notes that the officers are in discussion with key stakeholders regarding any impacts of the COVID-19 situation on the Metro West programme, which are reflected in this report. Metro West will be a key component towards the economic recovery for North Somerset and the West of England region as part of the wider national economic recovery. Thank you, Chairman. I look for a second.
Okay, do we have a seconder for Councillor Tonkin's motion?
I will second.
Councillor Ash Cartman, was that? Do you wish to speak to this,
that's right.
Councillor Cartman?
I just very briefly, I welcome this. It's a really good move. Coronavirus is dominating everything, but some business as usual must go on. I welcome the fact that Councillor Tonkin says there's break clauses in these, because if it doesn't go ahead, we minimise our risk, and there's also some good clauses about finding value for money. So I have no hesitation in seconding this.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the officers wish to make any further comment at this stage?
No, I haven't had any comments.
Okay, so do any non-executive members wish to comment, question?
Councillor Hugh James would like to speak.
Okay, Hugh James.
Hello again. I'd just like to offer my continued thanks to Councillor Tonkin and the council's officers. They're really hard work, sort of steaming full ahead, delivering this next stage of delivery of the Port deadline. One of the Chancellor's models, Milton Freeman, said that during crisis we're all Keynesians now, and I think that the progress made with HS2 has shown how the government have done good on their commitment to improve rail infrastructure and to deliver the rail delivery across the UK. This really essential public infrastructure project has been a long time coming and is vital to increasing the connectivity we need to power up our region's economy post-corona. So thank you very much. This is essential to rebuild public confidence ahead of the oncoming economic downturn we're about to face. Cheers.
I haven't got any other requests from non-executive members.
Okay. Do any executive members wish to speak, Michelle?
I haven't got any requests, no.
Okay, well, I repeat my thanks, as by Hugh, to all the officers and to colleagues for pushing this piece of very important work forward. And as Councillor Cartman said, we do need to keep up the business as usual part of our operations just as much as the essential work on COVID-19. So on the same basis before, Nick Brain, is there anything other than just we're voting on the motion?
Chairman, no. Vote
Okay.
motion as per the papers.
So is there anybody against? Are there any abstentions? On that basis, I'll assume we're all in favour of this motion. So thank you very much. And thank you, James. And we'll move on to item 11, which is Locking Parklands GP surgery. And this has been introduced by Councillor Ash Cartman.
Thank you, Chair. So this is, we've had this paper in its previous versions before at the Executive, but just to summarise where we are, this decision is about giving approval to award the contract to Wilmot Dixon for the construction of the Locking Parklands GP surgery. It's a slightly unusual arrangement because we will be awarding the contract, but the actual cost of building is fully funded largely from the CCG and the NHS, but also from a number of Section 106 monies. The total kind of capital cost is £4.2 million. And we will then own and maintain the property for 25 to 30 years, but it will be leased back to the CCG for a peppercorn rent. The final thing I'd like to note really is that in the back end of this paper, it talks about the environmental standards we're building to, and it gives some indication that we're building to BREEAM Excellent, which is in the top 10% of environmental building standards. I think what I'd like to see, having reflected on this just before the meeting, is going forward, perhaps we could have some more indication of when we can get outstanding buildings built on BREEAM. And also when we construct buildings, it would be useful in the future to have an idea of what their climate change impact would be, but I will take that away and work on officers in that in the future. But in summary, I'm happy to recommend approval of this, to delegate authority to the Director of Corporate Services and other officers to signing of the contract for the building of Locking Parklands GP surgery. I'm not going to read out the full recommendation. I'll assume members and people of the public have seen that already, and happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for this motion?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to second that, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor James Tonkin, do you wish to speak to that seconding?
Not really. I think Ashley's covered everything that needs to be said.
Okay, do any officers wish to comment on the motion or the paper? Thank you for all the work that's gone into this. I don't think so. Are there any non-executive members who wish to comment, question, query?
Councillor Richardson. Councillor Richardson would like to speak.
Jeff Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got one comment on this. I broadly welcome this, but in section 3.2.4, we are allocated £350,000 to maintain this building over its lifetime. And I'm just questioning whether that will actually leave us exposed, because I don't think it's really enough. If we have two major problems, we're looking after the plant, the outside building, the roof. I think we're at risk if we only have £350,000 over 25 to 30 years.
Ash Cartman.
Can I pick that up? Yeah, I mean, that's a valid concern. I raised that too with the officers. The answer I had back was we had an independent study done to assess what our liability would be, because I had shared the same concern that it wasn't very high. I think what I'd do, I know Councillor Richardson, you're a member of the Audit Committee, and maybe this is something we can get that paper and that work over to members of the Audit Committee if you feel that that's worth a check and just a quick review before we proceed. Would that be okay?
Yeah, that would be acceptable. Thank
All
you
right,
very much.
great.
And Councillor Cartman, are any of the officers here that wish would like to comment upon that? Because there may be a very quick answer that can be given. Is potentially Jonathan Kirby here? It may not be Jonathan.
Yes, I am on a call. So just to reiterate what Councillor Cartman said, we did have that independently verified. We also looked at our own whole life cycle costs through the contractor. So we do have a lot of confidence in the figure that we've got to cover the items. It is only for some of the main items of the building, the internal repairs, etc., all remain with the CCG operator, who they will nominate. But as Councillor Cartman's suggestion, happy to forward over that paper so that scrutiny can have a look.
That'd be great, thank you.
So, Michelle, are there any other non-executive councillors who wish to speak?
Councillor Havison would like to speak.
Councillor Karen Havison.
Yes.
Yes, I really welcome the fact that Ash stated that the BREEAM standard is going to be excellent. It's just that my concern is that the BREEAM standard was meant to be excellent for the school we built in Clevedon, no, in Yatton, I believe, and then a few days before the final decision was made, it was but downgraded. How sure can we be that we keep to this excellent standard?
I think I'm just looking at the report. I think it says that we will build to. I'm happy to say that it would have to come back for a further decision if we need to downgrade it. I can't. I'm just checking the wording quickly, if that's all right. Yes, I think it talks about. Yeah, Jonathan, do you want to comment on this? So my expectation is it would have to come back, and if we were looking to downgrade, which I don't want to do, we would explicitly want to be involved, because my view is this should be minimum excellent and hopefully outstanding.
So it actually links. Yeah, thanks, Chair. So it links through to the planning application that was approved last week on the 23rd. So planning have fully scrutinised this, gone through all of our submitted technical proposals that the building can achieve excellent. So we actually have two sticks here. We have one in that if any change to that excellent level, then yes, of course, we come back through executive, but also we would also have to go back through the planning process. As it stands at the moment, we are able to achieve excellent, and there shouldn't be a change to that.
But you'll come back and let us know if there's any doubt ever on that.
Absolutely, but it would put at risk both the planning and also this decision. So we certainly will be looking to do that.
Okay. So do any of the executive councillors wish to speak?
Councillor Caniford would like to speak, Chair.
Mark Caniford.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mark?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just one for Jonathan or Ash, and you'd expect me to ask in terms of my responsibilities to assets. Are we happy that the rent-free period is a fair deal in terms of the exchange for the investment that they're putting in? And have we challenged that robustly to make sure that we aren't giving too much away based on the fact that we desperately need a surgery there? I accept there is some value issues, but can I be assured that the deal is a fair exchange for the rent-free?
I'll pick up that first, and then maybe Jonathan, you can come in after. I think there's two aspects to this in terms of the deal. Are we getting enough money to cover the cost of the build? And I think the contracts, when awarded, will have a maximum cost provision. So we're prepared on that. So we're fully funding, and actually it's fully funded by third parties, the build. And I think the second one, in terms of the peppercorn rent, or rent-free as you talk, is about matching that to the maintenance costs, which we'll pick up through the audit committee. So I'm happy, although it's an unusual transaction, I accept that. We're having to get involved to facilitate the provision of the surgery. Jonathan, is there anything you'd like to add?
The only point I'd add would be that we obviously district valuer independently assessed as well in terms of what those levels will be. As you said, we can link that report through to the report you mentioned earlier, through to scrutiny. And we do have some comparative schemes as well that the CCG have also taken through recently under this new process. So we've been able to benchmark and check that value for money as well. But as I say, we can take that paper through.
Okay. So we have a recommendation. Are there any other, Michelle, are there any other members of the executive who wish to speak?
No other members of the executive to speak.
Okay,
no.
Thank you. So we have two recommendations in the paper to approve. Are we happy? I'm assuming we're happy to take those on block. I'm going to go for any those against. Any abstentions? Michelle, anything received?
Nothing received, no.
Okay, so I'm going to assume from that everybody is in favour of this. So thank you all, colleagues, and we move on to item 12, which is expansion of West Haven Special School. Now, just for those observing this, you may not be used to the way we work. This piece is going to be introduced, I understand, by our Director of People and Communities, Sheila Smith. Is that correct?
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Davis. Yes, you will remember that in relation to our commissioning strategy, which agreed, we identified the need for additional places. This paper here is very specific, and it follows a consultation that was undertaken by West Haven School itself, because they're required to do that rather than us as the council. And the reason it's here for decision is because we need to secure sufficient places for pupils with complex learning difficulties. And so the executive is asked to recommend an expansion in the age range of West Special School from 4 to 16 years to 19 years, with effect from this September. In particular, you're asked to approve an intake of up to 10 pupils across the school, the new 16 plus provision across years 12 and years 13. And that increase in capacity would take the school from 138 places to 156 places. And we are recommending that following a review of the use of the school site. I would just point out that the paper outlines very clearly the pressure on places at West Haven. But in particular, this is focused on those young people who would traditionally go on to further education at 16. And there's a small cohort who don't make that transition as well as they might otherwise could. And the school themselves are keen to ensure that where the pupils are particularly vulnerable in terms of transitions, that they're able to take these 2 years longer before then moving on to FE. There are two key points I'd want to make. One is that this would achieve parity with our other two special schools in North Somerset, whereby children can stay longer post-16. But also it means that on those rare occasions when young people in the past have maybe had to go out to external provision, then they have the option to stay here for those 2 years before then progressing on to further education provision, which in this instance is often Western College. I would ask the executive to recommend this, to approve it, I'm happy to take any questions, and I think Sally Varley is also available if you have any particular technical questions.
Okay, thank you. So we need a proposer. I don't know if Catherine Gibbons, as the relevant executive member, wishes to propose this.
Yes, I'm happy to propose this.
Do we have a seconder?
Councillor Mark Hanniford is requested to speak.
Okay, Mark Hanniford, you're happy to second this?
Just speak if I may at the moment, if someone else would like to second.
Okay. Right, I will second this then as Councillor Donald Davis. So first of all, Catherine Gibbons, you're proposing. Do you wish to make any comments?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I welcome this. I know that people have had queries about it and have spoken to me, and I welcome the opportunity to reiterate that this is something that's needed by a specific cohort of young people at West Haven. It's not that West Haven is going to develop into a sixth form provider. These are existing pupils, a very small number, which really need this specialist help. I think education is not a one size fits all for anybody, and particularly not when it comes to SEND. So the fact that we're able to recognise that there are these small number of pupils that would really struggle to change provision at this point and might actually fail to get education. We're offering something very valuable. The school, I think, will benefit from this as well, in that they'll feel they're offering the best possible chances to these pupils. And anyway, I just feel that, as has been said, it is our duty to make sure that parents have the educational needs met and that they have a degree of choice, and we are adding to that by supporting this. So thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. And as I'm seconding it, I would just reiterate your points. Councillor Mark Hanniford indicated he wishes to speak, and then I'll go to any non-executives, then come back to executives.
Yeah, thank you. Firstly, I wanted to thank Sally and Catherine. I did throw up some issues this morning, and they've been well replied to. So I would like to thank officers and Catherine for sorting that. And I think it would be useful for other members to know what my concerns were. And really, those concerns are only really about outcomes. I think I've had those reliably answered in the sense that I think that my great concern was, are we simply pushing back the time that pupils or learners have to make that move into a much more difficult environment? But I do fully understand, and I do get the consultation. The consultation was very clear that that parents particularly, and they're the ones we must listen to, feel that this would be a great advantage. I just have one very simple question, and I don't think it's a complicated one in the sense that I think from what it was just said, that we're creating another 18 spaces. If we fill those spaces, are we going to have a complication in terms of where we go then? Because there'll be many residents who will very much, if you look at the results of the consultation, parents who very much want their children to stay at that school because they are so comfortable there. Whether that causes a problem because we'll have to force some other students on. Is that a risk? Is that something that's being considered? And how would we deal with that scenario if that came? I think all the other questions that I had originally asked have been well answered, and I'm not going to challenge those at all. I can reliably say that it is about the consideration of people who are disadvantaged in their education, and we must do everything we can to make it easier for them. But if anyone can answer that, that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if either Catherine or Sally, perhaps Sally Varley, or do you want to answer, Sally, if you're around, or am I being unfair in asking you?
I'm perfectly happy to answer that. So
okay.
School currently have about 30 children in their year 11, probably about 26 in year 10. But actually, some of the numbers across the school can vary quite considerably depending on the needs of the children at the time. The head teacher is very, very clear that she doesn't want to stop children going on to higher or further education if that's the right choice for them. It is purely just, as Councillor Gibbons pointed out, for that small minority of children who, for which changing school at 16, they're not quite ready to do that. West Haven School doesn't just send children to further education, it does send children to higher education, it sends children into the work field as well. So it is quite a rare possibility that the children do need to stay on. There is a possibility that more might need to stay, but that's something that's discussed not just with the school, but with the parents and with the special educational needs team. And with other professionals, so that they can choose the right journey for the children that's based on their needs at that time. Okay,
thank you, Sally. So do we, Michelle, does any non-executive councillor wish to speak?
No, I haven't had any requests through.
Okay, any further executive members wish to speak?
No.
Okay, and any clarification from any officers? Thank you, Sally. Okay.
Nothing to say, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so shall we go to a vote? We have 3 recommendations here. It's been proposed and seconded. Are there any against? Any abstentions? We've picked anything up, Michelle?
Nothing at all now.
Okay, so I'm presuming on that we're all for. So thank you, colleagues, for your support on this very, very important item. And now we move on to item number 13, which is the Better Care Fund plan. I think that Sheila Smith, our Director of People and Communities, again will introduce this. Sheila?
No, I'm going to do it actually, Don.
Oh, okay. So Mike Bell.
Thanks, Don. This is the item on the Better Care Fund plan 2019-2020. Hopefully, colleagues have had the opportunity to read through the report. The Better Care Fund, for those that don't know, and the imaginatively titled Improved Better Care Fund is a national government support programme which is largely about delivering extra government funding into adult social care. The council under the plan is required to agree an approach with the NHS Clinical Commissioning Group and then get sign-off from the Department of Health. and this report relates to the refreshed plan for 2019-2020, which is largely a historic allocation of funding, but does include a few areas where we've been able to have some short-term funding priorities around extra capacity for the care sector and some additional investment in technology-enabled care and in extra care. I think it's worth noting that one of the key targets in the plan is about ensuring prompt discharge from hospital, either for social care assessments or into a ongoing care setting. And in the benchmarking tables that are attached to the report, you can see that the delayed transfers of care from hospital attributable to social care, we're amongst the best performing councils in the country, which I think is a great credit to our social care team and our community residential and nursing care providers. So there's a lot of detail in there, but it has to go through a process of being signed off by the executive, by the CCG, by our own health and wellbeing board as well, before finally being approved by the Department of Health. So I would ask the executive to support the recommendation in the report.
Happy to second that, Don.
Don, you're still muted, I'm afraid.
Do you wish to speak to that, Mark?
No, I think Mike's covered the whole thing. I thought it was a good report, but I also thought the results in terms of delayed days was really, really good, and I think officers should be congratulated for that.
Okay. So do we have Sheila Smith? Did you wish to say anything?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Okay. Any non-executive colleagues wish to speak or ask questions?
I haven't had any comments through.
Okay, so any executive members wish to ask questions?
Nothing through.
Okay, so we've got a recommendation to approve the Better Care Fund plan and delegate to the Director of People and Communities the power to approve the final version of the Section 75 agreement in consultation with the executive member for adult social care, which is Councillor Mike Bell. Do we have any against? Do we have any abstentions? Michelle, anything?
Nothing at all, no.
Okay, so let's assume that everybody's voting for that. So thank you, colleagues. Thank you for your support, and thank you, Sheila. We now move on to item 14, which is the Budget Monitor Month 11. And this is being led by our Interim Director of Finance and Property, Richard Pensker, I'm guessing. Or I could be surprised it's somebody different.
Thanks, Don. No, that's right, Don. I think if Richard could lead that, and then I'll perhaps give some comments after, if that's all right, Richard.
And I guess this is something, a historical document, given the current circumstances of where we are. So, Richard.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that now, doesn't it? Although this was our position as at the end of February, which we put together mid-March, so actually not that long ago, but it does feel like it certainly feels like a different world. But it is right that we bring you the Budget Monitor for month 11. It gives you the council's financial position at that point last year. So if I direct you to the table at 3.2, it will show an improved forecast from month 9 to month 11 and reports a minor overspend position of 35k. So almost a balanced budget position as at month 11. Now clearly we have a month to go. That's passed, but of course we are closing the accounts and therefore things generally do crop up and crystallise as we are a lot more forensic around closing of the accounts. So that position will change, and we look to be in a position to perhaps report that in a couple of weeks. But overall, good news, a very positive movement between the 2 months of £683,000, which is down to a lot of good work by directors in moving the financial position and mitigating areas of overspend. So generally, the headlines around that, so adult social care position has improved and they're pretty much on budget. We still see pressures in children's services, and they're listed at 3.3.2. D&E has been stable over the 2-month period, but still shows an overspending position, which is listed at 3.4, and corporate services is stable and has improved its position. So that's pretty much the headline on the revenue movement. I would say also that we will have, and I know that Councillor Cartman will want to come on in the end around coronavirus impacts, but we will have impacts even just in closing 1920. There will be impact on provisions and assumptions that we make, particularly in relation to debt, because the collectability of debt will be impacted by the current crisis. Now, clearly in setting the MTFP for 2021, we have sought to ensure that the pressures that we experienced in 1920 were covered by growth, and generally that is the case. I do think, and it will be no surprise, that some of those pressures will be exacerbated by the current crisis, and therefore I wouldn't therefore suggest that we've got all of that covered off, and particularly just to highlight on two, perhaps looked after children and integrated transport unit, which we would have been quite confident around covering off for 2021, may now not be the case, and there'll be other areas in the council where that's true too. So just to comment briefly on the pandemic and its impact, financial impacts. Clearly the council's been concentrating on assisting in the emergency, collating up the financial impacts in order to lobby government for necessary support. And you may be aware that we've recently been given another second tranche of support, another 5.9 million, which brings up our overall pot to 11.8 million. Now, our losses fundamentally are caused by a number of things. A delay in our MTFP savings. Some of the savings we put in the plan for 2021 are now harder to materialise. We've got significant loss of income in our car parks and commercial properties, etc. And of course, we've got additional cost pressures in assisting with the pandemic, more notably in adults' social care, payments to providers, providing of PPE, etc., dealing with homelessness and extra pressures in children. So all of those add up, and it continues to be a work in progress in making sure that we can collect all those up. Now, we have done some work sub-regionally around that, and we're working with other unitary authorities in order to put our case to government. So although we have 11.8 million, I wouldn't be confident that will cover the cost, but all that is to do with a factor of time on revenue. So if we come out of lockdown quicker and there's a fairly rapid easement, then clearly it's not as bad. Perhaps if we probably predict and we can all do that, it's slower, then clearly those impacts push out more into the medium term, and 11.8 million really won't get close. And we've still got some work we need to do on capital. So the report's in front of you, the details there. I'm happy to take any questions, but before we do that, I'll pass across to Councillor Cartman.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you for that report, Richard. And we do live in very uncertain times, and I think the message you get across is a very valid one. That yes, we have had some money from central government, but it's certainly not a windfall of additional cash. It's a small part of the cost pressures that we are experiencing, and will help, but certainly won't resolve the gaps we inevitably have. So sorry to interrupt, Ash Cartman.
Yeah, thanks, Todd. I think I'll just reflect on what Richard said, really. I mean, it's a strange time, because normally this time of year, I guess, we'd be pleased that we've managed to have another year and got a balanced budget and maintained our strong financial control. But we're in this coronavirus, and I think as a council, we're committed to do whatever we need to do to support our community. I mean, financially, I think a lot of members, or most members, will be aware that we've distributed money from the government on business grants. 27 million's gone out. We've ordered some PPE equipment for care homes in North Somerset, direct from China. We've approved a plan for an extra £2 million £1 support package to care homes. So we're doing good things, but we still have to balance our budgets. And I think Richard's outlined some of the uncertainties we've got. And so far, central government's been good. It's kept to its word and it's delivering money. But I think, as Richard said, we've had 11.8 million so far, and it sounds a tremendous amount of money, but the gap can get bigger and bigger, and we'll be relying on them to continue to provide us with the funds, because what we don't want to be doing is getting to the tail end of this year as we come out of this and having to look at cuts. So we'll keep an eye on it. The team are doing a really good job, so thank you, Richard, and thank you to the finance team. But we will do whatever we need, but we'll just keep our eye on the finances and keep you updated.
Okay,
thanks,
so
Tom.
There are 4 recommendations in this report. Are you happy to propose?
Yes.
And do I have a seconder for this?
I'm happy to second it.
So Councillor Catherine Gibbons. So I think you've already spoken. Councillor Ash Cartman, do you wish to say any more?
No.
Councillor Catherine Gibbons, do you wish to say any more for your seconding?
No, I just wanted to ask a question and make a comment on the back of this, really about central government stance. I've recently had a briefing from Councillor Nick Forbes, who's the chair of the Labour Association of Local Councillors, and he's commented that there's been a change in the language the government is using recently, whereas at the beginning of this crisis it was very much spend, do what you have to do, we've got your back. It's turned into being, well, do what you have to do and we will share the burden. So what does that mean for us? Sharing the burden and we are supporting you completely are 2 very different things. So what do we anticipate the level of risk is going to be for us in interpreting this change in the language?
Well, it's a difficult one to answer, isn't it? I mean, I've not perhaps picked up on the change in language coming out of the centre. I think all we can do is monitor it, and I know we do, as you know, Catherine, we've got a register where we monitor all the risks and the costs of this to the council. I think as soon as we have clarity on what the government support is, we'll have to make some decisions. I don't think there's much more we can do at the moment, and we're just relying on the fact that they have funded so far. But I think probably that's worth a conversation so we can keep up to date on what the latest funding position is. I don't know if, Richard, you want to add anything. I think the message we're getting from the relevant departments is business as usual, and they will continue to fund. And I noticed in the latest grant, we received another £5.9 million this week. So that was positive, but I think it's not going to bridge the gap entirely.
No, so perhaps if I just come in on that. So we did pick up that messaging, and it did accelerate some lobbying across the LGA and with the CLG, etc. And it's interesting to see that the overall national allocation is the same. So it's not that we haven't seen a reduction in the amount of money, and there has been a difference in the distribution now because we're a unitary authority. Overall, the new distribution favoured district councils, but because we are a single tier authority, we've pretty much got the same allocation, but county councils would have got less. So it will be different for different authorities, but it feels to us as if we're still getting the same level of support. But I wouldn't, and Joe Walker may wish to also comment, but I do think it's on us to continue the lobby that this is not sufficient, particularly if there is a deal in carrying on supporting others through council's revenue, which is what we are doing at the moment. Now we'll only do that while we're confident that we're going to get support from central government.
Okay. Joe Walker, Chief Exec, did you wish to make any comments based on what Richard said, or?
I would just want to echo what's been said. I think we've done a great job of tracking our spend and forecasting our losses, and we continue to lobby both individually as a local authority with our WECA colleagues and through the regional work that we're doing to have those losses and forecast losses recognised. I would go one step further and say there is also concern about how we transition out of lockdown and the costs associated with recovery and renewal. Because on the one hand, there is an immediate cost around the impact of COVID-19 and how we're responding and the impact that's had on our services and income losses. However, there is a significant concern around economic recovery and indeed health and well-being within our communities as we transition out of our initial emergency response phase. So I would just add that in as well as a concern.
Thank you, Joe. So let's throw this open to Michelle. Do any non-exec councillors wish to ask any questions?
Councillor Westwood would like to ask a question.
Okay, Richard Westwood. Where's the Clevedon jury? Are you there?
I'm here, don't worry. I'm here. Yeah, no, all I was going to say was that very much looking forward to the audit committee briefing, as I'm a member of the audit committee, that's been arranged for Friday. We were briefed as an audit committee by external consultants about our position as a council within the gamut of district councils, and we're pretty much in the middle as far as our risk is concerned. But obviously the COVID emergency will have changed everything. So as I say, I'm very much looking forward to being able to see what's happening with the flow of finances from central government. There you go. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
No, can I just pick up on that? I think it's important that the governance remains strong, because we're dealing with difficult and changing circumstances, and it's in that environment where things can easily go wrong. So it's good that we're having an informal audit committee meeting on Friday, and I know, Richard, you'll go through the report and you'll see all the details of what Richard and his team have been working on. I mean, I'm very happy with the excellent work that's been doing, but you need to be happy too. So I welcome any constructive comments you'll have on Friday. Thank you.
Cheers.
Okay. So, Michelle, do any other non-exec councillors wish to comment?
No further comments, Chair.
Okay. Any of the officers wish to comment? I think Richard and Joe have mentioned. Okay, we'll go to any exec members wish to make any further comments.
I've had nothing through the comments now.
Okay, there is a recommendation here. There are of 4, so we'll go through the usual process. Are there any against or any abstentions? Anything there, Michelle?
Nothing in the comments box now.
Okay, so I assume that on block we're happy to accept all the recommendations. So thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
We now move on to item 15 in the agenda, which is report from policy and scrutiny, of which there is none. Now we're going to item 16, which is oral reports of executive councillors. And I was going to go around the loop again and ask people in alphabetical order if they wish to make any comments, any questions, any queries. So Mike Bell.
Thank you, Don. I mean, the only thing I would say is that it would be wrong of us to have this meeting without putting on record once again our enormous gratitude to all of our staff who are really going above and beyond the call of duty in terms of helping our community to battle the coronavirus, and also our partners obviously in the NHS, in the town and parish councils, and the many volunteers right across North Somerset who are working so hard to support each other and get us through this current crisis. I want to particularly mention colleagues working in social care, because I think there's no doubt that this is increasingly becoming the front line in the battle against the coronavirus. We're seeing increasing concerns now about the number of cases and sadly deaths in care home settings. And I think over the next few weeks, we're going to be doing much more as a community, as a council, as a nation, to recognise the efforts of care workers and care staff, and to do more to support them in the vital work that they're doing in our care settings.
Thank you, Mike. And I completely echo the comments that you've made. Mark Hannaford.
Yeah, just briefly, Chair, I'd like to do a similar thing. I would like to thank, or put on record to thank, our business team. They're working 7 days a week, giving out support, giving out advice, and I believe that advice, or I'm told that advice is done within 24 hours, and I think they should be commended for that, because there are clearly an awful lot of very worried business people out there. And just for members, quickly, Ash touched on it earlier, we've had now 3,244 requests for funding from the 3,466, those who are available to claim. and we've paid 2,257 of those out now. So and now we've pretty much caught up. There are still a few difficult ones to deal with, but we now have a 3-day turnaround in terms of our grants, and 67% of our grants have been paid out. So I think the team have done a good job. We still need to keep pushing for the rest to be done as quickly as possible, but the last one's obviously becoming a little bit more complicated. So I'd like to thank the team for the work they've put in on that.
So thank you, Mark, and thank you for making those comments. I would agree with you completely. Are there any businesses, as we are transmitting this both live and it will be recorded for people to watch later, but are there any business in which you've had no contact with whatsoever, who we've asked to put in claims, who have still not come back, and this is government money that they can have as their right, and they're not claiming it?
There are a few organisations and businesses. Most of the businesses currently, the difficult ones to crack, are obviously the large multiples, who many of them either don't want the money goes up to head office deal with it. The local branch probably wouldn't have a clue what their details were, and it's down to them to put that claim in. We can't easily chase those issues around, and members should be mindful of the businesses they know in their wards. Just make sure that they've all claimed what they can, because quite clearly the government has put this money back in our economy, and we need it back in our North Somerset economy. So so those who haven't yet claimed it, we really do want them to claim it. It is here for them, and we're happy to help them get that money into their bank account.
It's their money and we want to give it to them, which is a very unusual thing for politicians to be saying. Okay, so Ash Cartman.
No further comments from me, Don.
Okay, Caritas Charles.
Just a couple of points, just to reiterate the thanks that has been given previously, particularly within my portfolio, to the people working in parks and open spaces and our library services as well. And I've got some good news to impart, that we've already dramatically increased our online reading offer, and I've just had it confirmed that we're going even further and have over 7,000 magazines and periodicals and newspapers from around the world available for the citizens of North Somerset to access. Details are on our website, so I encourage you to take over that opportunity and hopefully have something to pass the time during lockdown. So that's all from me, Chair.
Thank you. Catherine Gibbons.
Thank you. Yes, like my colleagues, I couldn't possibly miss an opportunity to thank everybody in Children's Services for the amazing work they continue to do, and how incredibly they've adapted to these new circumstances of remote working, of having to deal with vulnerable children and still keep everyone safe. It's remarkable, and I take my hat off to them. Also to our schools. I mean, they are doing a great job educating the children that have the right to attend schools physically. And just like to encourage anyone who can send their children to school, whether it's a key worker or has another need, to take up the place, because we have a lower take up than we would like to see. And I know it's scary perhaps for people to think of sending their children out when the message has been to stay home, but they will be taken care of at our schools, and if they can do it, do it. Thank you.
Okay, Bridget Petty.
Hi, I had two things that I wanted to share. Likewise, wanting to certainly thank all our staff and officers that have been working really hard. I keep close correspondence with our recycling and waste teams, and they've been doing a really good job supporting all our residents across all of the areas to provide a continued really good service despite this really challenging time. In doing that, we do have our household recycling centres shut, because for us, for now, this essential the need is to keep people home, stay home, and only make trips when they're essential. So we will follow national guidance, but for now, the keeping of those recycling centres closed is part of the national guidance to keep all of our population as safe as we can. And the staff there are currently supporting our curbside collections. So again, I think that that's the real priority that we've got to face right now. I also wanted to thank our partners and volunteers who are giving their time to protect and serve our communities, and it's a really valuable thing. Something that's come up recently in the past week is that I've had people write to me from the Cycling UK campaign regarding safety of walking and cyclists in some of our built up areas. I know that Catherine is somebody who has actually suffered from finding that cyclists and walkers trying to fill the same space is really problematic, especially in our urban areas. The Cycling UK campaign has called for the closure of some roads to make it safer for enabling social distancing. We know that we want people to take that walk so that they can get that fresh air and that sense of well-being. We know that some people are returning to cycling. Some people do have time on their hands and wouldn't be confident cycling on roads that are busy with heavy traffic. But now feels like the opportune time to experiment and try with some road closures, really in the effort to create safer spaces for all of our residents. So I'd like to work together with James Tonkin, who is Executive Member for Transport and Planning, and really identify with the low carbon transport team or other officers what roads, and I'm not talking about a massive blanket, but what roads could we close that would mean people can walk more safely, people can cycle more safely. And if it helps our key workers arrive at work using walking or cycling, then absolutely. If it enables our residents to take those walks more safely and to feel more confident about their social distancing and not feel trapped in small properties, then I'd like us to do what we can to action this as promptly and swiftly as possible in an appropriate but experimental way to see what we could do. So I think Weston might be the priority, but after that, looking at our towns as well. So I think James might be willing to comment on that.
James Tonkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Bridget. Yes, we've been looking at this in the last week, as you said. With our cycling safety team are particularly interested in it and are looking at schemes in Weston-super-Mare already, and I've suggested some other schemes around the towns and would look forward to any feedback from any members who have any thoughts on how we could improve this. So we will be looking at this over the next couple of weeks and we'll report back. But could I at this stage also say that there have been, because of the increase in the use of the Strawberry Line and the Heritage Way, we are getting a few problems with arguments as to who has the right of way between pedestrians and cyclists. And I've asked our safety team to look into some better signage on that to try and alleviate that problem. But apart from that, yeah, with you all the way.
Okay, James, thank you, Bridget. Thank you, James. Very useful in terms of that comment about distancing and the like on cycle paths and shared uses, that those could go out potentially to town and parish councils. There was a sign so that they could put them up in their area just to do some guidance. Because I think getting our own officers to do that is a very problematic thing. But if we could ask town and parish councils, if they got the opportunity, even if town and parish councils themselves could go and stick those signs up, I mean, it's be a useful way of making what are absolutely vital exercise areas a bit safer for everybody. Because I think we've all come across these conflicts, so that would be great if you could share that. So James, do you have any points of your own?
I think I've conveyed all my thanks already. So apart from that, no, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, just finally, I think I'd like to combine my thanks to everybody within the council and also to the residents of North Somerset more generally who've been helping us with so many things. Doing things that we as a council alone could not do through our North Somerset Together and all the other initiatives in towns and parishes. So thank you all for your doing to keep all of us safe in this dreadful catastrophe in which we find ourselves. And thanks again to all our council colleagues and those of our contractors working for us. So thank you again. In terms of just business as usual, I've mentioned in these items before the Western Gateway, the formalising of that as an entity still continues. It is still a work in progress. I do think that a far wider envelope which the Western Gateway works within will certainly help us envisage the government for those larger infrastructure pieces which we as local authorities, even a combination with the West of England, would not be able to ask for. So I think that, and I do think that the central government has indicated these powerhouses such as the Western Gateway, the Northern Powerhouse, the West Midlands engines will be instruments of growth, and I will keep members, both the executive and non-executive members, informed as and when this progresses, but it is moving forward. There is a governance review going on, and we are getting regular briefings on the prospectus, which I think people have seen, and the way we're taking this forward. So thank you for that. There is no urgent business for item number 17. Before I close the meeting, I'd like to pass my personal thanks, and I'm sure for members of the executive, on to Michelle for handling the questions. Thank you, Michelle, to Sue for doing all the background bureaucracy behind this meeting, for Nick Brain for facilitating how smoothly this meeting has gone, our first meeting in the virtual world. So thank you, Nick, and to Mike, who has masterminded the broadcasting of this, both live now and also for the recording to go onto the website. So thank you all for your great expertise. We absolutely could not have done this without you. So thank you very much. So unless Nick Brain has asked listeners has any more questions or comments, I'm going to declare the meeting closed.
Oh,
Nick, are we okay?
Don,
Oh, Bridget.
Don, you could share that the executive are ready to answer questions on Facebook Live on Friday. So we're going to be available to have more conversations and dialogue with our residents about what is concerning them, I believe, on Facebook Live. I think it'll be on the North Somerset Council page, probably.
And on time?
I think 3 p.m. and I believe you should be there. and I believe it would be great if there are some questions submitted in advance.
Okay, so that's 3 o'clock on British Summer Time, and that's on the North Somerset Council Facebook page. We'll look forward to seeing you all then. Those of you that have managed to enjoy this meeting, congratulations, thank you. So, Nick, can I declare the meeting closed? Have I missed anything out?
No, thank you, Chairman. But you've covered everything. Thank you for the meeting.
And thank you, officers, for all your contributions, and thank you, colleagues, both executive members and non-executive members. I declare this meeting closed. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, Chairman.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Don, can you hold on?